What happened in June during the World Cup? Who were the winners and losers? And how's July looking like on this video? The first month of the World Cup has gone by and we are only 10 games away from the finish of it. How did June look like? Who were the winners and losers? And how's July looking like? If we take a look at the occupancy of the Miami market, we can see that it was down 5 points from 2025. So 2025 with no World Cup was a better June than 2026 with the tournament. And you can see that, for instance, the first game played in Miami had no real effect on occupancy. The weekends were better than just any regular day with a game. If you look at Colombia and Portugal, which was the very first game to be sold out, it had an occupancy of 63%, but it was equal to the previous night. And this was a Saturday anyway. So we can tell that the weekends performed better than any weekday. And the games were not really drivers of occupancy. And you can see that between week 2 and week 4, the gap in occupancy with last year was pretty noticeable. So what happened with occupancy? Was there no more demand last year? Well, actually, the big factor were the nights available. You can see that there were 10% more nights available than last year. This means that more owners made their properties available, new apartments. So we had 200,025 nights available in June. So it was very hard to fulfill all these new nights to keep the occupancy above last year, even with the World Cup. Looking at the average daily rate, we can see the improvement here. It was 15% higher than last year. And we can see that this is more noticeable when there are more games, and especially because we're closer to July. And you can see the seasonality of the Miami market. July is always better than June. So towards the end of the month, the rate got better even than last year. Now, the games, again, it didn't seem to be real drivers of rate. You can see that the rate is very consistent weekends and weekdays. So we don't see much of an impact in Miami with FIFA games. Now, what happened in other markets? Well, that's a different story. If we look at the demand for game nights and surrounding dates, we can see a higher demand for game days and eves, but then the rest of the days around the games were below occupancy compared to last year in Miami. Now, if you look at other cities, both game nights and surrounding dates were better, especially in Mexico. These were Mexico City, Monterrey, Guadalajara. Those were the host cities for Mexico. Now, all across the US, very slight difference in demand, but Kansas City, Argentina played their first game here, so you can see a huge increase in demand during the game days. If we look at the supply, the demand, and the occupancy on these host cities for the World Cup, again, Miami loses overall occupancy because the available nights was more than 10% higher than last year. So too much supply to fulfill, which turns into lower occupancy because demand was not growing above the supply, which did happen at Guadalajara, but didn't happen anywhere else. And you can see that the occupancies were below last year with no World Cup. If we look at the average daily rates, we can see the increase during game days, but then surrounding dates, no change in Miami. And that's the big difference with all other markets. All other markets benefit not only on game days, but also on surrounding dates. You can see the yellow bars up on all other markets but Miami. This is an analysis of the games played so far, and I have highlighted the ones that were played in Miami. So what happened on each of these games? Brazil, Scotland, 25% more occupancy, 40% more ADR. So this was a good game for Miami. Then Colombia, Portugal, this was probably the most expected game to be played. 19% more occupancy, 26% more ADR. Now, if we look at the not so popular games, Uruguay against Cape Verde, it was 8% below occupancy, 22% more average daily rate. And Uruguay, Saudi Arabia, 20% less occupancy, 17% more ADR. So not much traction coming from the games for these dates. Looking into round of 32, which already went by, this was played July 3rd. Argentina played Cape Verde, and occupancy was up 60%. But this was 4th of July weekend, so demand was pretty good anyways. But this year was 16% better than last year, according to this report. I'll show you a Miami report which says otherwise, but okay, we can say that this game was a little bit better. We got 2 more games to be played. We got a quarterfinal and the third place game, and that will be it for Miami. So looking at the pacing, and this is how is the occupancy looking for July when the whole month hasn't gone by. So this was taken July 7th. So when this was taken, we were right here on the timeline. So all this, we still had to wait to see what is the final occupancy. But we can already tell that last year we were selling July better than this year. This is the Miami market. This is not only Amos Vacation Rentals. And you can see that the games are not bringing a higher expectation in bookings compared to last year. And then this was Argentina, Cape Verde, which was the highest weekend, but it was very similar to last year. And this is 4th of July weekend, which I believe is a higher driver of bookings than the game itself. And this is the ADR. July, solid month in ADR. All along the month, we see higher rates. Nothing special. Maybe here, first game, and this one, we see a bigger hump. But overall, consistent, 23% more ADR. That's great news. Not so much on RevPAR, because even though we're selling for more, we're selling, the occupancy is below. So we're not making as much money as we thought we would be making during July. All right, that's all from the recap for the World Cup. If you have any specific concerns on your property or a neighborhood, you can contact us and we will gladly organize a meeting. Thanks.